Okay, so what if I told you that there is a excellent, beautifully animated, well acted, really, really well thought out series about what seems like a typical character dealing with some very fantasy-like characters in a setting that's main theme is exploring non-traditional families. Also, it's not Steven Universe. So, I should start by saying I crap damn love Steven Universe. It's a pretty fantastic show that explores a lot of the themes that I'm going to be talking about here in some really interesting ways, if not a lot better, but that's not what caught my attention right now. I wanted to talk about one of the most popular anime of the moment, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. So, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is based on a manga of the same name, and to be perfectly honest with you guys, when I was first exposed to it, I was kind of dismissive. I mean, these character designs are wicked cute, but at the same time, it was like, oh, they're dragons who are also cute girls. And, you know, I kind of figured that this was just like another offshoot of this bizarre theme in anime that's been happening for the last 5 to 10 years now of taking normally beloved fantasy or military things and turning them into highly sexualized women. And I thought, okay, is that what we're getting here again? And I guess to an extent I can see that, but what's really interesting in Dragon Maid is the phenomenal and just really, really, really interesting character dynamics that we have going on in Miss Kobayashi's household. So, if you haven't had a chance to watch Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and I'm strongly urging you to watch Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid right now, it follows the adventures of the titular Miss Kobayashi, who is a woman who's turning 30 soon, works in programming, is clearly doing pretty well at her job, and spent a lot of her nights getting super blasted. And I say spent because one night on her way home, she runs into a young lady who claims to be a dragon, who it turns out literally is a dragon, and after Miss Kobayashi, in a drunken stupor, manages to save her life, said dragon becomes her maid, and actually vies for her romantic attention. This is kind of an interesting and weird setup to begin with, but what's more interesting about it is just how much heart this series approaches it from. Toru, the dragon, is running from a past and a family life that she's not happy with. She's a really desperate, and despite the fact that she's physically very powerful, she's a very vulnerable character at the beginning of the story. Through Miss Kobayashi, she starts cultivating other parts of herself, and through interaction with the human world, she begins to kind of rediscover herself along with discovering another completely different culture. Where this non-traditional family thing starts getting really interesting, though, is when the character Kana is introduced. Kana is another exiled dragon, but unlike Toru, she's not an adult dragon. She's just a dragonling. And she appears, appropriately, as a small child. So, while Kobayashi initially kind of sees the dragons as a endearing nuisance, more and more she starts treating them less and less like house guests and more like family. Her interactions with Toru become more familiar, more welcome, and her interactions with Kana become downright parental, to the point that Kobayashi is actually asking herself why she's doing all this and why she's buying school supplies for this little girl who isn't actually hers, and saying, I'm not old enough to be a parent, then realizing that a bunch of the people that she went to school with are parents. This comes through especially powerfully in the school sports day episode. Sports day being a big thing in Japanese schools, where the kids get a chance to go out and demonstrate their skills by competing against other classmates, and parents are usually invited to watch. Kana invites Miss Kobayashi, and Miss Kobayashi's initial response is, "I can't do it, I have work." But upon seeing that Kana is heartbroken, Kobayashi works several overtime shifts just so she can have the time off to watch Kana play sports and to eat lunch with her. Just like a parent. Before she knew it, Kobayashi became a dragon mom. Even more interesting, though, for me is Toru and Kobayashi's dynamic, especially near the end of the show. And I'm going to get into spoilers here, but I think there's some really interesting themes being explored here. Toru is put into a situation where she starts realizing that she, as a dragon, is going to have a much longer lifespan than Miss Kobayashi, and her father, who is a dragon warlord, reminds her of this. When Toru seems to be at wit's end and almost willing to return to the fantasy world with her father, it's Kobayashi who steps in for her and makes a powerful statement on the meaning of love. Kobayashi wants Toru to be with her. She wants her to continue being her maid, but there's subtext here. It's a familial affection at this point. A familial affection that Toru shares. And earlier in the episode, Toru was thinking about how humans deal with pets. And it's not unlike the situation Toru is in, but at the same time, it's also not unlike any situation of love. And that situation, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, is the definite nature of mortality. And the fact of the matter is, you are not going to exist as long as anyone or anything that you love. You have a set amount of time. When you take in a pet, you do it knowing that that pet is probably going to eventually get sick and die, and you will keep living. And you know that you cannot be with that pet forever, but the love you share with it in the moment right now, that's what's really important. And I think the same can be said for deeper relationships between more sentient beings. I think the same can be said of any relationship. There's no guarantee how long any relationship is going to last. There's no promise that things are going to be forever. But sometimes the joy you bring to someone else and the joy they bring you is something that is worth having in your life, even if it's not part of the entirety of your life. And I think that's a very mature and very insightful look at what love is. And for a really cute show about dragons who are also maids, that's some pretty heavy stuff. So, do yourself a favor, take a look at Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. I think you might find something worth looking at there. As always, if you enjoyed what I'm doing, please like my video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to help me out in a more concrete monetary way, feel free to support me on Patreon. The link is right down there in the doobly-doo. And as always, keep on spocking in the free world.